Hey everybody, welcome to the Greatness Glory podcast. We're back with Kevin here to have some casual conversations. Hey Kevin, how are you, man?
Doing well, doing great. Happy, was it Tuesday?
What do you have in your mind today to discuss?
Concept of faith. In one of our podcasts, you mentioned a lot of people have this notion that their sacred text is the one and only text, and they read it and arrive at certain conclusions with a lot of certainty that they know what's going on. Where does that stem from, in your opinion? And if you've had any experiences with that?
Okay, let's just start with this. I always like to start defining the meaning of things that you say before we discuss it. What is faith to you?
Great. Faith to me is about devotion, is about understanding your values and being devoted to those values. And I define devotion as that intention and commitment to follow through with it, regardless of what happens.
Okay. Well, to me, faith has two meaning. One meaning is that people say this faith, that faith means like this religion or that religion. And then it has another meaning that having a strong trust and belief in something or someone.
Why does it have to be blind? Why do they say blind faith? Like, don't you want to be open, aware, and conscious?
I think when we are speaking about faith, we are speaking about trusting. So if you're going to trust on God or some sort of divine incarnation like Jesus or whatever. When you don't know them and when you don't have any specific rational way to say it's the right thing or wrong thing, it's blind and it's like the two-edged sword. So it can be good, it can be bad. My approach is a combination of rational studies, sticking to values, and at the same time having faith and devotion, but not a devotion that is stemmed from just accepting what people say, but from deep study and understanding. I was thinking about this actually yesterday that there is a poem by Rumi which I wish I had the English translation. It's a long poem, but he's talking about love and different powers of love, different things that love can do as a very high thing in life. And then at the end, he says, even this love is a result of knowledge. So when you have the right knowledge and right understanding about the nature of things, when you have the understanding that to be loving is likely the greatest thing, it's the most pleasant state to be in, then from that knowledge, you would want to be loving, right? So, in the same way, if I understand that me trusting in a divine incarnation or something, it is helping me, then it's good. But if I interpret that faith as blindly believing something that is written in a book just for whatever reason that is not provable, saying everything that is written here is God's word, and not even question my own understanding of it. The meaning could have been changed, the book could have been changed, in the translation the meaning could have been changed, or maybe I am just misunderstanding it, and so on. So the open mind that we talk about is a crucial necessity for self realization and moving towards the truth. So we need to have the open mind, we need to study, but we should not, as seekers of truth, just read something and say, okay, I just accept this and this is my truth, whatever that is. That's not how I operate. I like to study deeply many sources, contemplate on them, and then also align it and match it with my own life experience.
Why is the message that we receive even as children growing up is that the faith needs to be blind? Like, why the blindness? Because wouldn't you want to be awareness? Isn't that enlightenment, being fully aware and connected?
I think it's just comes down from the tradition of various cultures and religions, because your father, your mother might have this blind faith, which gives them some sort of confidence or some sort of purpose in life. And then they just want you to have the same thing because they think that's the best thing for you to have. And they're not concerned with questioning it because most people operate instinctively and emotionally. They feel like, because when I think about Jesus, it gives me such a tremendous feeling, it uplifts me, then it must be true. And I'm not saying it's not, but I'm saying they're basing their rightness or wrongness or being true or false a lot of time based on emotions. That's why with a lot of people, especially followers of the Abrahamic religions, when you question things, they're not able to provide a reasonable answer. Like if you ask somebody, why do you not question book that you believe is given from God and see if it's really the same version that was channeled by this prophet and that prophet? They're just going to say, oh, my logic is that God has given this book and God will protect it and nothing is changed in it. But it's just not based on reality. It's just a belief that they have that if this book has come from God, then it cannot be changed. I mean, if it was true, then God would control everything and it wouldn't give it to us. God has provided us with absolute choices to change things, to mess up things, to make things better or worse. So those kind of logic can be easily questioned.
So is it coming from a place of fear that if I investigate the sacred texts of my ancestors, I may find contradictory information or things that I may not agree with? So let me just be blind and accept it and hope for the best.
Definitely, I think fear is the number one thing that creates that narrow mindedness and rigidness and preventing you from having a question in your mind to find what's truth and trying to stay where you are. Because we as human beings are programmed to stay where it feels safe. Your religion, which you connect to a lot of people in your community, it's also a kind of survival thing. When you think about maybe some of my beliefs about my religion is not really correct or pure, in the back of your mind, even though you might not see them, tens, hundreds of different types of fear will pop up. One of them could be, what if this religion, some of it is not correct, or all of it, or whatever fear that you have? And then I'll be isolated because everybody will hate me. Everybody say something is wrong with you. And it's true in many cultures and religions. And d- depending on where you live, you could even be prosecuted for rejecting your religion. So fear is the main thing, right?
Don't you feel that's why spirituality has lost its place in religion? Because I remember growing up experiencing like my grandfather doing the Judaic Christians of his ancestors as he was teaching us, I felt the spirituality, and something happened along the way. As I grew up, I lost that sense of spirituality. It wasn't until recently, to be honest, that I rediscovered it. And it was an internal journey, something that cannot necessarily be experienced in houses of worship nowadays. Like, what do you have to say to that? Like, that in modern times, we struggle with finding spirituality or ways of connecting to the source, the creator, that is the source of everything.
Can say again, it all goes back to having adequate knowledge, and it's not an overnight thing. When I started studying religion and spirituality when I was like 14 to 15 years old, and after 1 2 years of study, I had a lot of conclusions and I had firm faith in it. I was like so ready to even share it with so many people and prove to them that this is reality, you all been misguided and so on. But after a few years, I found out even my view was not correct. And guess what? After a few years, I found out that even that type of understanding is not correct. And guess what? After a few years, I felt like even though I didn't really change the whole belief, it's like my understanding of it is not even refined enough now. And that's the truth of a spiritual seeking, that the more you progress, your understanding of reality will become more refined.
Thank you. And I think that's exactly what's wrong with modern times, that people who create the most conflict in any area of life are often the ones that are really sure about themselves, right? And we're just agreeing here that we don't really are coming here, by the way, doing a podcast saying we know anything. We don't. And if anything, I feel like part of spirituality, like you mentioned, is just throwing your hands up and saying we don't know. And what's wrong with saying we don't know? This universe is so vast, so mysterious, that you could spend lifetimes here and still discover more and more. Why can't we acknowledge that as humans?
That's the greatest thing. And I like to write and create some content around this a lot, because I think, again, acquiring of right knowledge is the key to all transformation. And we don't really know anything in an absolute sense. There's nothing that we can know in an absolute way, except that you know that you exist. You know you exist, but you don't know what you are exactly. You have the sense of I amness, but you don't know anything beyond that for sure. You can explain it, but if somebody comes to you with right wisdom, they can question all of the things that you say, even the things that are as clear as daylight to you. So the path to higher realization is to study not just the books, but study the world, universe, study yourself, and paying attention, which is a key, mindfulness, and paying attention to things and not being emotional, perceiving things with a neutral attitude without being too much vested in them, and like studying them, analyzing them, and not coming to conclusions. And I think this is all you need to do. I believe in a lot of things, I have faith in a lot of things, but I am not rigid about them. So you can study as much as you want, you can come to conclusions as much as you want, and do not be rigid about them. Do not form absolute beliefs around them. Always be open to a higher understanding of things. Because as long as you say, this is reality and it must be this way, it cannot be another way, then you are stuck. You're stuck in your head. And even if the highest truth comes to you, you say, no, I already know the truth. So it's okay to be happy with what you know. It's okay to rejoice in it and have faith and all those things. But have this attitude that, okay, this is me right now. I'm happy with my faith, my belief, whatever, but I'm open to higher possibilities because there is always a higher understanding. There is no place that you get into and say, now I understand the whole limitless universe. It's true. So you need to always keep your mind open because our rational capacity, analytical capacity is given to us for analyzing and keep going. It's not given to us to just draw conclusion and say, that's it, I know now.
I think it's hilarious that we're still debating whether the earth is flat or round. I recently heard the moon is flat, and it makes you wonder like where humanity really is in terms of its evolution, because it's easy to say follow blindly, because that way you don't even have to do the work to get to know yourself, right? I mean, how easy is that? It's convenient.
Okay.
And to me, like I like this Churchill quote that price of greatness is taking responsibility. So to me, that notion of follow a faith, any faith blindly, has this danger of basically implying you don't have to really do any self discovery, asking who you are, what are your values, what motivates you, what type of person you are, you know, and what are your goals, what is your future, how do you want to contribute to a community, to a family. And it's very dangerous to just, you know, send that message, but it's so common to hear that I think we don't even stop and say, why is it blind faith? Because I think it's also blind love, isn't it? Like the saying that like love is also blind. Why is that?
Yeah, in a way you can compare them because again, most people who follow a faith, they are following it based on some emotions. Even though I'm sure almost nobody from those people admits it, but it's more about how they feel about it. And they have a community, they have a mosque, they have a church, they go, they play some music. I mean, I heard, for example, in ancient times, they would play this organ in the church and then it would create this vibration and humming sound. And people would think that this is Holy Spirit touching them now because of that experience. Well, nowadays people know and they don't associate it with Holy Spirit. I'm just giving it as an example because a lot of faith is based on emotions. It's not based on right understanding and knowledge. So in that way, yeah, when you fall in love, also it's an emotional thing and it can be good or bad. So it's the same thing for faith. When you just base your faith on very really basic sense of logic and not studying it deeply and not questioning things, it can be leading you toward the wrong path or at least keep you stuck in your ascension of consciousness, let's say.
Thank you for that, because I think spirituality used to be part of daily life, like Sunday church, temple, regardless of your faith, religion, background. By the way, we're not promoting any specific faith or tradition here. We're just having conversations about spirituality. But there is that knowing sometimes that comes from your intuition, like when you fall in love and you can logically explain it. And the connection between love and faith, which you brought up, which I thought was beautiful, following it blindly, which was the connecting dot, but also not coming from a place of logic, because what if we can perceive everything using the left side of our brain? What if certain things in life need to be felt?
I can say that before answering that question, we need to define what is logic and what is intuition because, well, logic is some sort of computing and coming to conclusions and everybody knows it, like just calculating things. Most people have a pretty wrong understanding of intuition. Intuition is not necessarily some sort of divine or spirit communication or something like that. It's actually another level of logic, which we can't call logic, but it's just like, but you cannot explain it. It doesn't mean that God or higher self is showing that to you. It means that you are connecting to another aspect of yourself which knows everything but talks to you usually in the form of feelings, subtle feelings. For different people, it's different, but it's mostly feeling for people. So that feeling is the communication from, let's say, your own brain. Your brain, your conscious mind is not able to explain to you some of the complex subjects, or it's going to take a lot of time for you to logically explain everything. But sometimes you just have a feeling that this is right. And intuition, in my opinion, is usually like this. It just shows you if you are in alignment or you're out of alignment. That's all it shows you. Let's say it's just like a GPS or a compass. It's like, okay, I'm doing this meditation. Is this good for me? In your deep, quiet stillness, if you ask that question and you feel very good about it, something from within says yes, then it means that it's good for you. If you have resistance or you have conflict or whatever, maybe it's not the right thing for you. Same thing for eating or a medicine that you want to use or so many other things. But not everything that you feel is intuition. That's the biggest misunderstanding as well, that people misunderstand emotions um, from intuition. They think emotions are also intuition, but intuition is very subtle, very quiet, always, let's say, feels good. But emotions, you have like conflicts, you have resistance, you have different kind of struggle. It's heavy. Intuition is just like a wind in a still forest coming and touching you in a spring when a good weather is just like caressing you, very like gentle and guiding you from within. And when it comes, it's like there is a light. The light from within shows you and you feel, yes, this is the direction that I need to go. And then that's one level of your awareness. And I don't want to make this very long, but just to discuss more about the intuition. Yeah, the intuition has different levels as well. And there is a level of intuition which we can say is a divine intuition, which comes from your higher self. Even in psychology, Carl Jung studied a lot of Eastern things and brought this concept of like conscious mind, subconscious mind, collective subconscious mind, superconscious mind, whatever. So there are different levels. So some of it, a lot of it actually, for most people, is coming from the subconscious mind, which is much faster and much better processor. That's why a lot of dreams that people think, oh, it's divine dream or whatever. It's like 99% of it is coming from your subconscious mind. You just see the visuals in your sleep
Yeah.
or even in your psychedelic journeys. But there are a different level of intuitive perception that also comes beyond your subconscious mind. It comes from your superconscious mind, which we're not going to get into. But superconscious mind is like beyond, let's say, the limitations of the subconscious mind. It's not personal, it's more like universal. So it has a higher level of perception. So sometimes, very rarely, for some people, also some intuitive messages come from that superconscious state. You can call it higher self, God, angel, whatever.
Thank you. And wouldn't you say it's a knowing, like falling in love? Isn't that like a knowing? You just know as opposed to believing or having faith in it, right? Because I don't think you have faith in love, but when you fall in love, you just know it. right? It's the same feeling to me as, how I feel about my little dog, or a tree, or a small creature that I see. But to me, it's a knowing. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's an experience. Yeah.
But is an emotion an experience, as opposed to, what I'm trying to get at is that when you look beyond having blind faith, there is certain things beyond emotions, right? Which is some sort of energies in motion. There's better ways of describing emotions, but there's that knowing at times when you recognize an eye contact, you recognize a touch, you recognize even a poem, and there's that like innate knowing in your gut that this is familiar, this is safe, that this is, it feels like home. And to me, that's the best description of love, like, where you have no expectation from the outcome, and but just you just purely know that it's different. It's not like your average type of emotion, like anger, rage, excited, infatuation, fill in the blank.
Yeah, maybe you want to elevate those emotions to a spirituality, but I believe it's just more refined emotion within yourself that something outside of you triggers. So obviously, like everybody wants to be in love in a way, and it's the best experience to have because you feel like very pleasant, very calm, very peaceful, and satisfied. Obviously, you want to strive to get into that state of being an experience. So when you say like falling in love, I know this is something maybe transcendental, something beyond. It's just another aspect of yourself which you got access to by an external event or person. But you can also access it without an external crutch. It's possible.
You brought up dreaming earlier and elevated emotions. And given the age of I think it's very easy for people to potentially confuse elevated emotions like excitement, infatuation, with love or even a spiritual experience. Like, how do we discern between the two? Whether it be something that's elevated and not the true knowing.
Yeah. When it comes to spirituality and self discovery, actually, no emotion or experience or a state is it.
Mm.
So it doesn't matter. It's not even devotion. It's not even bliss. It's not any of those things because those things are rewards that you get on the path. But the ultimate thing is beyond any emotion or even experience. And I remember this story that one of disciples of the great sage Ramana Maharishi, when first he met his guru Ramana, Ramana said, and he was a kid at that time, I believe, said, "Where have you been? What you been doing?" And this guy was very spiritual and some sort of psychic, maybe. And I said, "Yeah, I've been playing with Krishna, which is a form of God in Hinduism." And Ramana Maharishi asks him, "Is Krishna here right now?" He says, "No, he's not here right now." Then Ramana Maharishi looks at him and with that eyes of God and knowledge, he says, "What appears and disappears, it's not true." So you can translate it also, what appears and disappears is not God, because God is beyond all the experiences and up and downs and so on. So the ultimate reality is a place beyond all of the dualities and experiences and up and downs. That's why I keep insisting that we need to get into that witness attitude, that you just are a neutral witness to all the experiences, all the thoughts, all the emotions, all the body movements, all the things. And it's not going to happen overnight or over a month. It's like a lifetime practice of mindfulness and self discovery.
Thank you. When you realize scientists now are saying if you blow up an atom to the size of a football field, the neutron or the nucleus is the size of a grain, or what we can at least perceive in comparison to the vastness of the cosmos. It makes you wonder how much we don't know, based on our limited perception, which has evolved due to survival. And for me, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, we don't know. And there's also beauty in that. There is a freedom in that, but there's also a sense of curiosity and wanting to explore more in a playful way. And Alan Watts used to say, never take what God's made for fun seriously. And I think that's a perfect metaphor to love and play, but also know that this is a limited physical experience that we're having as multidimensional beings, with love being one of the most amazing ones. However, those other emotions, don't you feel they get in the way? And how can we have discipline around those emotions that may get on the way of recognizing and knowing the source?
Well, my understanding and my path, what I've been practicing is to practice transforming the lower emotions to higher emotions. This is in a way is same as saying the ascension of Kundalini, the energy within, because every experience that we have, especially spiritual experiences, the inner changes, is dependent on Kundalini, but not in the way that people understanding it. It's like ascension of your own energy in your own spine, in your own nervous system. So when your energy is in the lowest possible way, you are in survival. When it's a little bit higher, you are a pleasure seeker. It's a bit higher in like third chakra, whatever, it's like you seek power and you're more confident, whatever. When it's in the heart chakra, you feel more like emotional, loving, artistic, whatever, and then it goes like that. So the path of yoga, the Buddhism, the spirituality, the Sufism, and the path of even religion in its core, it's the path of transformation of your vibration, your energy. So you transform one thing to another. It's just like the Hindu fire ceremony that you put something in the fire with the intention that you're going to transform it to a higher energy. It's just like the tobacco smoke of the Indians, Native Americans, that when they pray, they feel that their intention is like rising to a higher dimension or whatever. So if you have a spiritual practice, it could be something as simple but very powerful as a devotional practice, praying to God, Jesus, Krishna, whoever, they're all the same, and surrendering yourself, surrendering your emotions. Or if you're not into devotion, just sitting with your emotions and not trying to fight them and just accepting them and letting them change. You might be practicing some sort of meditation of mindfulness. You're just aware of the emotions and it happens. Or maybe you're chanting a mantra with focus or many other things. And then you try to transform those emotions to a higher vibration because ultimately you want to strive to journey from the lowest emotion, which is fear, to the highest emotion, which is love and gratitude, and even beyond that, which is beyond emotions. Because these emotions are all energy, like you're just changing your vibration. There comes a day in a spiritual journey that you will be completely free of all those lower emotions, and then your energy, your vibration will be established in that state of being in absolute state of love, gratitude, bliss.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing up sacredness, because I believe there's a direct correlation between feeling and understanding something that's sacred, whether it's a text or a ritual, or even an heirloom that maybe you got from your ancestors or grandparents. And devotion to me is also that knowing that, hey, I just don't know if this being, whether it's a tree or a bird, is Krishna reincarnated, is Jesus reincarnated, or so you just bow and you respect. And having respect for life, I feel, is what humanity needs to focus on at this point, because we've been focused on survival way too long. Fear, shame, guilt. That's how we've been controlled, unfortunately. That's how a lot of organized crime happens. And the same way, we've seen, corruption in a lot of institutions. Me professionally, a lot of my work revolves around governance, compliance, and ethics. And I'm just so excited about this future that, like, that we've embarked on, that humanity has embarked on, because I feel finally with technology we've reached a point where we can go beyond survival and explore love and sacredness and devotion. With devotion not just being of service every day, but having respect for life, and
Mm.
being inclusive, including everybody, not just being like, oh, this is my love, or this is my God, it's better than your God. Let's stop acting like children.
And can I add something?
Yes.
Well, I will try to add more information to this later so I can make it more clear so people understand it. But this is an existential fact that your spirituality, your connection to God is not going to happen if you are in a state of hate, jealousy, fear,
Correct.
whatever. You need to rise beyond those emotions. This is the message of all religions in the core, all the spiritual tradition. So when I see the news, when I see the crap on social media that the Jews hate Muslims, some of them,
Yeah.
and some Muslims hate Jews,
Yeah.
and then I see this guy, devotional Jewish person, a yeshiva student or whatever. They are some video I saw that they're passing by a church and they're spitting because they hate Christianity so much. Not all of them. I mean, I'm not saying all of them are like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or to be honest with you, I didn't want to share this, but I'm gonna share it. I'm very empathic person in terms of like feeling and energy. I always wish to go to the Jerusalem to visit the sacred sites, and I always love to go to temples and sacred places because they're supposed to have a special energy that helps you become meditative or connect or whatever. When I went there, I couldn't take the energy there because all I felt was there are a bunch of people on the other side of this wall praying so these people on the other side of the wall get.
Oh my God, I never thought of it that way. I'm so sorry, but you're right.
No, yeah, you get what I'm saying. But just to finish it for everybody, I just felt like there is a wall. People here are cursing other people in their prayers, and people here are cursing people in the other side. There is no fucking spirituality, no God in this. This is
Absolutely.
all religious bullshit.
Yes.
And this is what separates us from truth. This has not come from God. This has come from whatever stupid religious leader that's been on the top of the tradition, that with whatever intention, whether they were charlatans, whether they were just ignorant or whatever, it doesn't matter. We need to start questioning things and saving ourselves and others by acquiring the right knowledge and right realization. Because if you think you are a very religious person and you hate somebody and you think you are better than other people, which means ego, which is the complete 180 from spirituality to have ego and being egoistic and so on, you're not a spiritual, you're not seeking God, you're not any of those things. This is all your emotions, the beliefs that you received from some tradition, some family. lineage, something that you are afraid of questioning. I am saying this not out of judgment for you or anybody who is listening. I'm saying this out of my highest state of love for the universe, because I want everybody to be free from those cycles of hate and ignorance and being stuck in their belief system, thinking that, oh, I know this is the truth and everybody else is stupid and you're not going to get anywhere. I just want to give this energy, this understanding to people that you need to start questioning, you need to start studying and letting go of like rigid beliefs.
Thank you. No, I love your energy, and we need to talk about it. In fact, just a week ago, I was telling a dear friend of mine that when I landed in Israel in 2006, the Arabs and the Israelis, you couldn't tell them apart, especially the young kids, right? And when you look at the statistics, every year, even in Israel, there's record number of interfaith marriages because the younger generations, our generation, the millennia, just like every other generation, they want peace, love, family, children. However, we have politics involved. And I don't think we can talk about politics, since you brought up jealousy and narcissism, without addressing the selected few who sort of create these narratives and stories of hatred between cousins, between people of the same nation. You see how countries get divided, how families get divided. I know of many religious people who reject their family in the name of God. Whereas, isn't God about loving and being inclusive? You can't separate certain things, like the same way you cannot talk about Judaism without Christianity, the same way you can't talk about a God without believing that there is a higher knowing that's all loving and beyond perception of duality. How do we get beyond those obstacles of narcissism, jealousy, character flaws that have polluted religion and spirituality? Is my question.
As I mentioned, it's a journey of lifetime of inner ascension and purification and studying and the right knowledge. And you don't necessarily have to find a guru or a spiritual tradition, but you need to study a lot, you need to think a lot, you need to analyze a lot, you need to experience a lot, and you need to walk towards less sense of self, less ego, less self importance, more service, more serving, more love, creating more compassion for others, and understanding that your goal in many ways is to become more loving and more peaceful. And Bible says that God is love, and ancient Hindu texts also saying the same thing. So a very high aspect of God is love. To be in love is to be in communion with God. But love also has different levels. As you know, I think it was Pluto who wrote a book about different levels of love, which he says like the highest level is agape or divine love or whatever. So I'm not talking about any type of love like you love playing Xbox or anything like that.
Really?
But then Rumi also says this very beautifully, that it says love, whether it's for this or that, ultimately will lead us to the ultimate in a way. So any type of love is actually good, whether you love your dog or your PlayStation or whatever. It's good. It's making you stay in a pleasant state, and maybe it's helpful in many ways.
So you and I are speaking about our definition of love, okay, from a spiritual perspective based on our experiences. And I'm acknowledging that a lot of people nowadays may have their definition of love derived from MTV, okay, or social media, any number of stimuli that's sort of constantly fed to us. If we step aside as you and I and look at society, look at us and say, okay, there is not any one version of love that's correct. We have our version that we're talking about the knowing that comes from the gut, and people others who may have a superficial or even different ways of explaining the same thing. If and you look at humanity and the way we're playing with that notion of love, hate. What are we trying to learn as a species? Is this a natural part of evolution or is this the downfall of man? How do I know the version of love that you and I are talking about? The same way we agree on a specific color. This is black or that is white. How do I know and what gives me the permission to say, hey, this is annoying, right? That is obscure.
It's very simple. It all depends on your own experience that you have. If you compare your love for cars, you'll see that it's something that comes and goes, and like it depends on the situations. And if your expectations are not met, you're not happy, and whatever else. And I hope everybody understands what I mean. Otherwise, I will explain more. But like when we're talking about divine love, unconditional love, what are we talking about? We're talking about getting to a state that we are at peace with everything. Whatever happens, happens. We are okay with it. And that's the real meaning of divine love and surrender. And this surrender, this devotion exists in all religions. It's more dominant in Hindu, Sufi traditions and Christian traditions and so on. And maybe I'm ignorant of it, but I've seen more of it in those traditions, which you have this understanding that, oh Lord, your love is enough for me. I surrender to you. I am at peace with everything. I know everything is your will and I accept it. Whatever comes my way, I'm happy. Why wouldn't you want to be in that state? Because if you get into that state that no matter what happens in your life, you are in love, you're okay, you're blissful. Everybody want to be there. So I don't think there's any question of this love versus that love, which one is better. Because unconditional love, which needs to happen from within after you're mature, it's absolutely a pleasant experience.
Okay, got you. And I want to ask you a follow-up question, but you put that elegantly. It is a personal experience, the spiritual journey. It's an inner journey. That's why that there are obstacles, but is ones that you need to address, and it has to do with shadow work, as a lot of therapists mention. In your experience, having faced your demons, if you have, or have had the courage or been curious, what has been the greatest lesson you've learned? And what are your recommendations for those who are still stuck in a constant state of survival, being fearful of anything, being in anxiety, not being sure of the future or even what love is? What are these guys talking about?
I think we just need to find out our real priorities in life because that's the most important thing. And if we don't, we can end up wasting our whole life and then only realizing it on our deathbed. So if you understand that you are here just a passing traveler in this life, there is nothing that you're going to get out of this. You cannot take your car with you. You cannot take anything with you. You cannot even take what you think you are with you. So it's just a matter of understanding that this is a transitionary, ephemeral experience and questioning, okay, why am I having this temporary experience if I'm going to lose everything, including this body and who I think I am when I leave? then what is my priority? Why am I here? Then the question of finding that answer should happen to you naturally if you really think about it. Thinking about death, which almost all people want to avoid, is actually the greatest teacher. When you really think deeply about death and you accept that, oh, this body is going to die and turn to ashes one day. And if you live with that question day after the day, it will create a tremendous awakening in you.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you for that. And, I can speak extensively about that as someone who's had the privilege of having worked in hospice care. And I remember the first time I came across a person who passed away, and it was so foreign to me. I didn't even recognize it. And yeah, it changed me. I don't know how one can be around that energy and not really think of their own mortality, which I think more people should be aware of and think of, because at the end of the day, you're on that bed by yourself. It's you and your God or yourself, us being reflections of God, parts of God. And it's a very special energy. I actually want to talk extensively about it in future episodes if you should be willing, because death is a great teacher. And unfortunately, in our culture nowadays, we think it's taboo. We hide away from it. We think in certain traditions it's dirty, whereas in certain cultures it's celebrated. Like, I love how in the Mexican culture, for instance, loved ones, past ones are celebrated, and there's a lot to be learned from what death has to offer. And I think there needs to be more conversations around it, because the saddest thing I witnessed as a hospice administrator in my many years of service was that a lot of people would reject spiritual support even to until the very last day. Like, I mean, they're literally about to go, and when you offer any type of spiritual support, they give one last if, like, I'm like, no, I'm just gonna go, saying there is nothing. And you often see that look of bewilderness on their face, unfortunately, when they do transition. I can't say it's sad, it's a learning experience, and that's what that soul needs. Like, every soul is here for a specific reason and lesson. However, I love how we're starting to talk about it in different spiritual circles, because you cannot separate the spirituality from the concept of us being here on temporary basis. Those degrees are not going anywhere with me.
yeah, I can say, if you avoid thinking about death, if you just avoid it, you're also avoiding life. If you do not really accept death and contemplate on it, you also do not embrace life fully, because honestly, death is life. Death and life are not different. It's like it's a process. Every single moment you're dying and being reborn, every atom is appearing and disappearing hundreds of times every second. Maybe a lot of people don't know this. And every moment your mind is changing, your body is changing. And since you were born, you're actually being dying. Just think about it. Like the body was born and it's just going transitioning to corrosion and just being destroyed. It's like it's obvious. It's not something questionable. So if that's true, by avoiding it, by picking your phone and scrolling Instagram, you're not gonna become happy. By finding the best dream job, you're not gonna just become happy and peaceful. You have to come to terms with what death is and accept it as a part of life. And in many traditions, there have been a lot of rituals and meditations around the concept of death, because it creates a great awakening in you when you understand that this body is temporary. This Isaac here is temporary. When you understand that, then naturally you will want to find out then what is beyond this body. And That's a very powerful experience to have, actually. It's better than many of the religious and even spiritual things to do.
Thank you. And actually that's beautiful because I think death is beautiful. It's a special energy. And one thing I've learned having been of service is that it's an opportunity to you don't want to wait that long essentially. You know, even science says every cell in our body totally regenerates and is brand new every 3 to 5 years. So the question then becomes we're brand new people every 3 to 5 years, you know, on a molecular level, how do we still stick to the same old notions and belief systems to a point where, you know, Israel, instead of a sacred land, unfortunately has become, you know, center of conflict, controversy, where crimes against children takes place on both ends of the border, crimes against humanity on both ends. And this is in 2025. So how do we hang on to those belief systems when we're brand new people? Like, what is our responsibility as a new generation to break these old paradigms and circles of ancestral trauma that keep us in a constant state of survival, not being able to reach and understand love, which is the true beauty of life?
What do you think about it?
What I think about it, you know, in the Hindu tradition, you know, you have the karmic wheel, the karmic traditions, and I think it's trauma. I think that we need education. I think education is the key to breaking the chains of trauma and this notion that we need war, that the people are different, whether it's their gender, ethnicity, background, religion. I mean, it goes beyond religion. It definitely, you know, there's people who still in 2025 firmly believe certain genetics are superior than others, unfortunately. Whereas what makes life beautiful is the diversity and the colors and the variety that gives meaning to life. And it's sad. However, all the divisions we see politically and globally, in my opinion, has to do with a selected few narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths who are just focused on benefiting from war, famine, and suffering of humanity. And I think it's time that we say we don't consent. 2 years ago, I started a campaign, hashtag we do not consent. And right now it has about 200,000, I think, hashtags on the social media. So my invitation to everybody is when you see something that promotes hate, use that hashtag. Say, we do not consent, because at the end of the day, I feel we are interdimensional beings, spiritual beings having a physical experience here. And it's a shame that, you know, people have to wait until their deathbed before they realize, hey, this was an illusion. This was just a simulation for the soul, which is what I truly believe, and even scientifically, people say it is.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I don't have anything more to add to that. And I think this should be enough for our today's discussion, and we can discuss more about it later. Thank you so much. God bless everybody and have a great time.